Hello there. Hello. I'm Kate Kunkel. I'm a brain health mentor and creator of Brain Health Matters, a series of educational events, programs, and courses all about helping you create a healthier body to make a happier, healthier brain. And I'm delighted to welcome a special guest here today. Nick Hope is a fourth-year doctoral student at the Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine. His main areas of interest are in diagnosis and prevention of dementia through non-invasive or pharmacological means. Yay! Nick is a member of our Prevent Dementia and Alzheimer's group on Facebook, and I invited him to come on to talk to us about a study he's inviting us to get involved in and to talk about something called the finger study. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Oh, I'm so excited to talk with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What got you interested in this dementia prevention? Did you have a family member with the disease?
It's a great question. It's kind of a multifaceted story for me. So I was always interested in the brain. And when I went into my doctorate program, my girlfriend at the time, now wife, was just completing her physical therapy program and began working in the geriatric population. So having her describe some of her patients and some of their characteristics really kind of made me fascinated in that point. And then as I began my doctorate program, I got clinical exposure to various cases and really found myself fascinated and passionate about a similar population, particularly with diagnosis of dementia. And that's when I started working with my faculty advisor and dissertation chair, Brad Rosenfield, who kind of brought up this idea of dementia prevention and how there are different things that we can be doing to help, protect our brains the best as possible. So it really, I started my doctorate in 2017, and it's been kind of this ever evolving process since.
Our son is just finishing his doctorate now too, and it's the same kind of thing. It started out quite different from what it's ending up to be, but that's okay. The great thing about this is the learning process, right? So
yes,
congratulations on you on taking this path, and may I send my thanks to your wife for sending
thank you. I'll be sure to relay that.
Please do. So tell us about some of the things that can make us more aware, and what does the finger study have to do with dementia prevention?
Absolutely, it's a great question. So the finger study was this groundbreaking study, was published in 2014, but it was in the works since 2009, I believe. And essentially what this was, it was a randomized control study. So they had half the people in some type of intervention group and half a group in a control group. And essentially what they wanted to do was they wanted to see if different lifestyle factors protected the brain and increased, our mental and cognitive functioning. So the intervention group, quote unquote, received kind of intensive, behavioral, therapies and education programs associated with things like our diet and our exercise and cognitive stimulation, whereas the control group received just kind of basic education. And they found that over the course of a 2-year period, the individuals in the intervention group had better cognitive outcomes really across the board. So they had better things like processing speed and memory and, higher order thinking and what we call executive functioning. So they really found that the individuals that had enacted these pro-health behavior changes had much better cognitive standing than their counterparts who are very similar in all other aspects 2 years later. And this was such a groundbreaking study that they initiated this kind of international consortium called the Worldwide Fingers, or WW Fingers. And this now consists of a ton of different studies that are going on throughout the world, focusing in different aspects of this finger study. So there are studies being done in Asia and Europe and some in the United States, as well as other areas in the world, all kind of looking at different aspects of the finger study. So some are looking at, different methods of delivering these services. Others are looking at kind of elaborating on some of the other pro-health factors. So it's a really, really fascinating initiative that's really kind of gained a lot of attention over the past 5 years, especially given kind of the public health concern over the, increasing levels and increasing prevalence of things like Alzheimer's disease and dementia.
Sure. So what would you say are some of the most important things that people that affect this? So would it be diet or like we hear about these brain games, you're going to have more neuroplasticity if you have brain.
Yes,
Yeah. So let's talk about those. What are the things that actually are showing some difference?
absolutely. So the things that are showing the most evidence, there are some other things as well, but the things that are showing the strongest evidence to protect the brain are diet. So a healthier diet, not surprisingly, leads to better health outcomes, and that includes our brain health. So things like, green leafy vegetables, cutting down on our red meat, our sugary foods, our high fatty foods, beans, nuts, kind of like high protein types of, like poultry, kind of like lean meats and things along those lines are all really good things for helping not only our bodies thrive, but also kind of helping our brains metabolize those nutrients well and get as much blood flow to the brain. Because what we find, particularly with dementia and Alzheimer's disease, is that there's a lot of different theories behind it, but there's kind of this universal agreement, at least to some extent, that these are diseases of circulation. There is less blood flow, less nutrients, less oxygen coming to the brain. So the brain is having trouble because it's not getting what it needs.
So that's why people who have a history of strokes or heart issues seem to have an increased likelihood of developing dementia, or people who are diabetic, because that also impacts circulation, right?
There's a ton of studies as well. Diabetes is one of the really big things that they look out for because they find that blood sugar and things like poorly managed diet are closely associated. Same with cholesterol. So all of those things are kind of intertwined with one another and can kind of affect the brain. Another one is exercise. So not surprisingly, when we exercise, we get the blood flowing. So that blood is flowing to the brain. So the brain is staying healthy in that sense.
So I'm just going to ask you a question here. So if people have like lung issues like COPD or asthma or something else that impacts their ability to get oxygen into the body, could that also then impact the likelihood of, or at least make it more likely that they would develop some kind of brain issue?
It's a great question. To be honest, I don't entirely know, so I don't, feel comfortable saying yes or no. I think it's an interesting theory, and I would say probably a neurologist or a pulmonologist would be a better reference point for that. But it's a very, very interesting question that I think should definitely be explored, because one of the things that we do know is a major, major contributor to a higher risk of dementia is sleep apnea, which is a issue with breathing in your sleep. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of those other issues like asthma or COPD or other pulmonary issues would have similar results, although I can't say definitively.
Gotcha. Sorry, I interrupted you. You were starting to say something and I
No,
stopped
not at all.
you.
And then the other really big ones are sleep. So when we sleep, our bodies are able to repair themselves. They're able to kind of rejuvenate themselves and kind of prepare themselves for the next day. So sleep is a really, really critical factor in our brain's ability to kind of recharge. If you think of it kind of like a battery, and it will repair itself. So if we have poor sleep patterns, the brain doesn't have as much opportunity to do those things.
Right.
And then the last one that we really like to focus on is stress management. So we all live very stressful lives. So the ability to manage that stress is a really, really big factor as well. So whether or not people are better able to, handle their stress appropriately or, kind of proactively through things like breathing exercises, physical exercise, or through kind of cognitive strategies is much better than, coping through, more unhealthy ways, like substance use or anything like that.
Right.
So those are really kind of the big areas.
So going back to the stress reduction, so many people have talked to me recently, and I hold a whole program just on tuning up your brain, and most of it deals with stress reduction because And I'm a big proponent of meditation and mindfulness. In the finger study, did they do anything like that to intervene? Was there anything like that used?
So the finger study didn't go into elaboration on the types of therapies that they used,
Okay.
probably as a result of, their intellectual property. However, that is something that has been a focus on some of these other treatments in the WW Fingers initiative.
Okay. Because to me, it seems, do you know who Dr. Daniel Amen is?
I am familiar with the name, but I'm not entirely
Okay.
up to date on his work.
So I'll just fill you in very briefly. I'm studying with him right now. I'm getting a brain health professional certification through him, and he's most famous for his SPECT scans. And so he talks a lot about he calls it 4 pillars of health: the physical, emotional, psychological, and spiritual, meaning also our connections with other people, and the psychological, of course, is stress management. But it seems what the finger study, even though it doesn't say it that way, it's still kind of dealing with the same 4 pillars. And I do the same thing in my book. It's basically body, mind, and spirit. So I think if we take the time to analyze our lives and figure out where we are on all those aspects of our lives, we have a pretty good chance, if we deal with them properly, of helping lower the risk anyway. What do you think?
Absolutely.
So tell us about the study that you posted in our group. Tell us what that is supposed to be for and how we can help you.
Yeah, absolutely. So this study is for my doctoral dissertation. So this is a requirement of my education. And it really kind of is based off of the finger study that we just talked about. So it's going to be looking at, changing behaviors like diet and sleep and exercise and stress management and all of those things. However, one of the things that I really saw interesting about the finger study was that this was over the course of a 2-year period. So my study and the study of, Dr. Rosenfield, who's my dissertation chair and advisor, is to see if we can elicit those behavior changes in a much shorter time frame. So we're looking over the course of a 7-week therapy session compared to a 2-year therapy session, and see if we can elicit any type of significant behavioral change in that short amount of time. Because again, with things like Alzheimer's and dementia, time is of the essence. So we want to make sure that we are, changing these behaviors as quickly and effectively as possible, but also making sure that we're setting up people for success long-term.
Right.
So really the main purpose of our study is to see if we can achieve those behavioral changes, known to protect the brain, and also make sure that we're kind of making a case for, other studies to look at and see, hey, we saw these changes and, we should adapt this, because like I said, this is a simple academic dissertation. I don't have the resources or funding of a major research institution. Right. So I would love to, be able to present this evidence for one of those better funded or resourced institutions for them to say, hey, there's something going on here and we can get much more people accessed here, right, and a lot more people helped.
So what made you choose 7 weeks? Because my program is 8 weeks, and I feel that it takes, from my point of view anyway, and I'm not no doctor or anything, but what I've experienced over these years is that, like, in my case, 2 months, 8 weeks is about the time it takes for someone to actually get into something, for them to make the changes. Is that what you were thinking with this as well?
Yes, very similar. So our kind of data is based off of cognitive behavioral therapy and motivational interviewing, and that's a typical time frame that we like to have our groups in many different modalities of those 2 different techniques of psychotherapy. So that was kind of our basis of things. And then also just more logistically, timing wise, we want to make sure that we can collect the data and selfishly have me graduate on time. And to also be sure that we're able to cover each individual topic each week. So we have a sleep week, we have a diet week, we have an exercise week, etc. So perfect. Each week is able to cover the basis of all the topics we want to go over.
Oh, this sounds so wonderful. I'm so excited to be able to share this. For those of you who
appreciate it so much.
Oh, hon, I'm like, to me, this is what the world needs more of, because if people can see changes in that 7 or 8 weeks period, then hopefully they will actually, get it into their lives and make a huge difference in their future, protect
Absolutely.
those memories.
Absolutely.
So I put in here now we don't have anybody joining us here live in Zoom, but I will post it in our Facebook live stream, and it will
Thank
also
you.
go in YouTube. So people who are watching this in the repeat on YouTube, the link is below the video. So you can go and you can see if you qualify. Nick, what are the qualifications? I know there are some limitations because I was too old.
Yes.
So
Yes,
tell
it's
us
a
the
great
limitations.
question. Important thing to know is that the link that you fill out is not the study itself. This is just an initial screener to determine if you are eligible for the study. And if you are, you'll be contacted by me or my research assistant to go over our informed consent that's been approved by our institutional review board. But the exclusion criteria or inclusion criteria, depending on how you want to look at it, you need to be between the ages of 40 and 60 years old. You need to not have any significant mental health or physical diagnoses, and we consider that to be ADHD because that's a neurodevelopmental disease, as well as autism spectrum for the same reason. Any type of major psychotic issues that affect your perception of reality, so things like schizophrenia or delusional disorder, diagnosis of Alzheimer's or dementia for obvious reasons. And then also any type of terminal medical condition that would affect your ability to participate in the study. Aside from that, you need access to a primary care provider, just due to ethical reasons and having a point person to contact in case anything were to happen. And then you can't be taking any medications to improve your memory. So things like Aricept, Namenda, Memantine, things like that.
Right. Okay. So folks, those are the criteria. But when you fill out the form that I've got linked here, it stops you. If you're not going to work for any of those, it just stops you, which is great. Although I have to say I was disappointed.
Yes.
Although I've done all those, probably most of the things that you would ask us to do, I've done them. And actually, Nick, I want to share with you, well, I became interested in this whole thing because my mom was diagnosed with dementia, and I was in my mid 50s when that happened, and I was pretty scared, and I was already having some personality and memory issues, and going on this program that I developed because I didn't know anything about what other people were doing. I just, did some research on my own, and I created this protocol that I'm on and that I share. But it sounds like it's pretty similar to the finger study, although I'm vegan and I propose, that. But it does make a difference. It can make a huge difference in your life. So folks, if you want to try this and help a young man get his doctorate, this is the chance to do this with some supervision, with some direction, and to do good for both you and the world, because who knows, this study could lead to many other things.
Yes. Yes.
So,
And I always like that this is not a sales pitch. This is entirely free to you.
yeah.
And actually individuals that do opt to participate and meet the criteria will be entered into a raffle to win one of 5 $50 Visa gift cards.
Oh.
So that's just a little bit of incentive, but I always like to add that this is absolutely no cost to the participants.
Right.
And this is entirely held over Zoom, given COVID-19 as well. So I like to tell people that as well.
That is great. Nick, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your wisdom, and we wish you all the best. People who are watching this, sign up, help this young man and help yourself. You could make a huge difference in your life in 7 or 8 weeks.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Nick. Take care.
Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.